San Diego honors its military men and women on Veterans Day, especially those who served after 9/11. And they reached out to help our aging veterans of earlier wars. We'll look at how those who served are being honored. I am Dwayne Brown. Also tonight on KPBS Evening Edition, a week after Election Day, one South Bay race is still undecided.
A local nonprofit gets a $1 million gift to help civilian mental health workers treat military members and veterans. Why the specialized training is needed. Plus, she's not religious and not a hiker. So why did a San Diego woman walk 800 miles to visit all of California's missions? I'm Peggy Pico with that conversation just ahead.
And we'll meet some women vets who served their country in wartime and are still serving today. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Marching bands and floats parade down Harbor Drive, all to honor San Diego's military veterans. Hi, good evening. Thanks for joining us. Today was the first time San Diego's honored post-9/11 vets with a parade. About 39,000 veterans who served in Iraq and Afghanistan live here. It's the largest concentration in the country. San Diego is also home to veterans from other wars, including Vietnam, Korea, and World War II. It's estimated we have a total veteran population of about 250,000. There's word tonight of some new efforts to end homelessness among vets. One of them is called Zero 2016. San Diego is one of 68 cities joining this nationwide program funded by a nonprofit from New York. Backers of Zero 2016 say they've already helped shelter more than 100,000 homeless in other communities, and tomorrow San Diego city leaders are set to announce a 3-year homeless action plan designed to get 1,500 people off the streets and into housing where they can get help. Now, San Diego's Regional Task Force on the Homeless says there were more than 1,300 homeless vets on the street when they did their last point-in-time count in January. They say the number has been going down over the past few years. The next count is planned in mid-January. Many military veterans are unable to leave their homes because of physical limitations. Meals on Wheels has been serving homebound seniors in San Diego for over 5 decades, and a large percentage of their clients are veterans.
I have two of these folks that live in a high-rise, Daniel and Margot, and they're shut-ins. I mean, they're just, they don't get out.
Greg Wiest got out for his weekly trip delivering meals to homebound seniors, loading up his SUV. He's been doing this for 12 years and says it's more than a meal, it's a connection.
Many of the seniors that we deliver to are veterans, so it is a special day, and you like to shake their hand and thank them.
Anisha Aird is currently serving in the Navy and has volunteered with Meals on Wheels for the 4th year in a row because it gives her a sense of purpose.
Just because we serve doesn't mean that we can't give back as well to our community, and to do something else, I think that makes me feel better, like I have a sense of accomplishment.
All it takes is 2 hours a day, twice a month, to become a Meals on Wheels volunteer. Debbie Case is CEO of the nonprofit, serving San Diego for over 54 years now.
42% of our client base is former veterans or spouse of former veterans. And so, we're helping them out day in and day out throughout the county.
Navy veteran Nathaniel Dunn got his weekly drop-off from a group of Navy petty officers in Claremont.
Guess all of it may as well come in.
Mission accomplished. Meals on Wheels is always looking for volunteers. They serve about 2,700 seniors a year, 2 meals a day, 7 days a week. A San Diego nonprofit gets a $1 million gift to help civilian mental health workers provide treatment to military members and veterans. Peggy Pico explains why.
Many active duty military and veterans get mental health treatment from civilian providers. That's just one reason the local nonprofit Psych Armor Institute offers training and a hotline to non-military mental health workers. Founder and CEO of the Institute, Marjorie Morrison, and VA San Diego psychologist Carrie Rogers. Welcome to Evening Edition.
Thank you.
Now, Carrie, how many military members or veterans actually seek mental health care outside of the VA healthcare system?
Well, we know that about 40% of eligible OEF, OIF, so Iraq and Afghanistan conflict veterans seek care outside of the VA for any kind of care. Around 80%, 85% seek mental health care outside of the VA.
And those are some of the same numbers that you also cited for doing this project. So, Marjorie, why do you think that people go outside of the VA healthcare system to get help?
Well, so just to clarify, what I would say is 85% of providers that are providing that support to the military and veterans are non-attached, they're civilian providers. Mm-hmm. And I think that they're going for a lot of different reasons. For one is that if you're active duty, there's still that fear that it might affect your career. There might be some shame involved. And as far as the VA, you know, some people do really, really well there, and other people don't, and they want more anonymity.
Anonymity, right. And Carrie, do you think there's other reason? Are there long wait times? Is it hard to get into the system?
You know, we're working hard on the wait time issue, but part of what happens as well is that not all veterans are close to a VA. There are a lot of rural veterans in this country who prefer to see providers who live closer to their homes. Some veterans and military members don't want to see their health care in a large system and find smaller clinics easier to navigate for them. So that's a reason as well that people seek care outside of the VA.
Yeah, let's talk about one in particular, post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD. We hear a whole lot about that. Would you give us the scope of what that's like right now in the VA healthcare system?
In the VA healthcare system, we are estimating that overall there are about 250,000 veterans, OEF, OIF veterans in the VA healthcare system that have a diagnosis of PTSD.
And how many people here in San Diego do you see that either have PTSD or other mental health issues?
You know, about 25% of the veterans that are enrolled at the VA San Diego have a diagnosis, who seek mental health care from us, have a diagnosis of PTSD. About 40% have some sort of mental health condition.
So I heard a number that 4,000, there are 4,000 mental health visits, not necessarily just at the VA though, right?
There are, in the VA San Diego healthcare system, we have about 3,800 contacts with veterans for mental health conditions each week.
So it's a large amount of people that are trying to seek these services. And Marjorie, when you first started treating members of the military in your practice, you've said that you didn't necessarily understand all the intricacies that you needed to. Give us an example of what you needed to know.
Oh gosh, I mean, it's so different. It's such a completely different culture. And part of it is that I think most civilians would agree that we don't understand the military culture because it's somewhat insular, right? They go to schools together, they have their own shopping centers together, even their own rec centers, the kids hang out together. So it's not even just understanding the job, it's understanding the way of life. It's understanding the difference of enlisted and officer. It's understanding the different ranks and what they mean. It's understanding the mission and how putting the mission first. It's something we're very focused as civilians on us becoming better people. They're very focused on the unit.
And Carrie, would you add to that? There's something particular about the military culture that you think maybe civilian therapists need to understand?
I think all of those are excellent points. You know, one of the things that we see a lot is stress just from deployment or stress from mobility. Military members often move every 2 to 4 years, something that civilians are not always thinking about and aren't aware of. So those stressors can be very different for military and veteran families.
Okay, and Marjorie, your institute, I should say, received that $1 million grant from San Diego philanthropist Becky Moores. How specifically are you going to spend that money? How are you going to help healthcare workers improve treatment?
You know, what happened was, as we went out and we started going out to the communities around the country and training providers, we found that learning in class, it's just like any class you take, you remember, but what's your retention 6 months down the road? That this need for ongoing support was so desperate. We're losing lives. Suicide rates are through the roof. PTSD are issues, homelessness, unemployment, and people go get help, and the help doesn't have any place to access support, resources, referrals. And so we just knew that there was this need to create an umbrella for all military mental health care. So that grant is going to be used towards building out the hotline, which is a national hotline free for all providers, and in building out an online portal, like a chat room for people to share stories, share communities, build out webinars. We're looking to be the umbrella of military mental health.
And Carrie, in addition to that, what is the VA doing to bridge services for the military here as far as mental health care?
In San Diego, one of the things we're doing through the VA Center of Excellence for Stress and Mental Health is we go out and train providers in the best evidence-based care that's available for depression, for post-traumatic stress disorder, and we also offer consultation to those providers once they have received that treatment so that they can use those therapies, which are really gold standard therapies, when they're working with active duty and military veterans.
All right. Well, we have a lot more about this on our website, kpbs.org. Carrie Rogers and Marjorie Morrison, thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
Let's look now at how the nation's veterans were remembered around the country. At Arlington National Cemetery, there was a wreath-laying ceremony and a salute from Vice President Joe Biden.
Because as every adversary in every age who has ever come up against you has learned, American warriors never bend, never break, and never, ever, ever yield.
And in New York City, hundreds of flowers laid at the September 11th Memorial Plaza. The stock market was open, but traders opened the day with their own remembrance. A jury says San Diego County must pay $3 million to the family of a heroin addict who died of an asthma attack in jail. A forensics expert says the attack was caused by symptoms of heroin withdrawal. Daniel Sisson died 2 days after being arrested for possession. His family says they hope the verdict will prompt changes in how inmates are handled when they're going off drugs. 1 week after Election Day, one race in the South Bay is still not settled tonight. KPBS reporter Jill Rep-Logal is in the newsroom with the latest on the race for mayor of Imperial Beach. So, Jill, it's been a dead heat. Where do we stand tonight?
Yeah, forget the 52nd congressional district race. This one is really turning into a nail-biter. The registrar's office just put out new numbers. There's now a 31-vote difference between the two candidates. Environmentalist Serge Dedina is challenging the incumbent mayor, Jim Janney. He's been in office for 8 years. And it's gone back and forth the last couple of days. At one point, they were tied. Serge went ahead a little more yesterday, and now he's got a smaller lead. So really, the registrar's office says, they still have ballots to count, provisional ballots to count. They need to canvass all the precincts and make sure that the number of ballots issued match up with the number that were cast. They need to count ballots from touchscreens. So we still might not know until December 2nd who actually won this race.
Wow. KPBS reporter Jill Rep-Logal. Thousands of California nurses are on a 2-day strike against Kaiser Permanente. Today's walkout was in Northern California, but the nurses union says they will picket and rally here in San Diego tomorrow. Nurses say the problems are staffing and Ebola preparedness. Kaiser says the strike is irresponsible. Their San Diego facilities are expected to stay open tomorrow. A new study says covered California plans don't have quality maternity care for high-risk women. Those findings come a few days before open enrollment begins for the state exchange. The Milken Institute says its review found the needs of high-risk maternity cases weren't addressed because of the women's economic status. Covered California says that's not the case.
Response is the federal law provides essential benefit coverage, national standards. California has great full range of benefits for people with every health condition, including maternity care across the board.
Now, open enrollment for the exchange starts Saturday. Tomorrow, the National Park Service will take public input on a plan to raise fees at the Cabrillo National Monument. The entry fees for cars would triple. The Park Service says it hasn't raised fees in 27 years, and 80% of the money is used for preservation and improvements. The meeting is scheduled at 4 tomorrow afternoon at the monument. The Park Service is also taking public comments online until November 25th. We have the link at kpbs.org. A zoo in Mexico City is joining efforts to bring back, yes, the California condor. U.S. government has donated 2 female birds for a new captive breeding program. Condors once ranged from Canada to Mexico. They've made a comeback after near extinction in the 1980s. There are now about 400 condors alive today. A San Diego writer talks with Peggy Pico about her 800-mile walk to see all 21 missions right here in California.
Maggie Espinoza began her trek on the El Camino Real, or King's Highway, at the San Diego Mission and finished the 800-mile walk last week. Maggie Espinoza, welcome to Evening Edition.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so I understand you're not a Catholic. You're not a hiking enthusiast. You didn't even grow up in California. So tell us, what motivated you to do this walk?
I'm telling you, I am asked that a lot. And it's really funny because I don't know. And every mile I kept thinking, I'm going to figure this out. And I have finished it, and I still, the closest I can say is that I think I did it for a challenge. But I learned so much along the way.
And we're going to get to what you learned. But first, I want to know, how did you do this logistically? How many miles did you average a day, and what did you have to do to
Well, I
plan
divided it into 12 months. So 1 year I gave myself. And every month for 4 days, I would walk, and it would be about 75 miles, sometimes 80 if we were really pushing it. And I would then take Amtrak back and forth to where I started and ended. And I would have people join me, and I would send out an email and say, who wants to come? I'm going to be walking this section, and that's how I did it. And I did it through a guide that a gentleman had written, who's walked it twice, crazy, and also through Google Maps.
Well, you say the guide and Google Maps, it sounds very popular, but really you're only the 11th person who's actually done this. What were some of the major challenges along the way? You know,
I found a couple of them. One was the heat. The heat was crazy, especially in Central California. During the summertime, it really got, sometimes it was triple digits. That was very hard. And also the infrastructure and the route, there's not one route. There's not like, here's how you're going to go and you're going to follow it. You really had to, sometimes you had to say, well, here's the 101, there's the El Camino Real, and that I can't walk on. So I need to either parallel or I need to go out and come back in. And I met a gentleman whose name's Jim Lutz. He was on California Mission Walkers. And Jim was such a great deal of knowledge for me. And he would say, hey, I'll walk with you, and let's try this route, let's try that route.
But you had to jump through some hoops, because you had to walk through Camp Pendleton, you had to walk through some military, right?
I did, yes. I had to get special permission to go through Camp Pendleton. And it just so happened I have a friend who is ex-captain, or was captain. And he even said it wasn't easy for them to say yes, but we walked through. And that was a hike. That day was like 23 miles.
That was a long one for that day. Do you now that you've visited the missions, do you have a favorite one?
I have 2 that I really love. One was Carmel. Carmel was just beautiful. And it just happens to be the one where Juanipo Acero, who is the gentleman, the padre that started this all. And the other one is San Juan Capistrano. It's gorgeous. You know, I don't know if you know, they've redone it, and it is beautiful.
I actually take the train up there for people who haven't. It is absolutely gorgeous, the renovation. I have to ask you this, would you do it again?
No. And you know what? I think I always say it must be like, I don't know, childbirth, where if you ask them right after, you go, never. But, you know, I can see it now, and a year from now, I'll be like,
you might change your mind.
But as of now, no. But I am so glad I did it.
And tell us, you said that you learned something. What did you learn that maybe we wouldn't typically know?
I learned that there are such kind people in this world. strangers that take you in. They take you in for meals and they say, I have a spare guest house, etc. People that if they see, I came to a place at one point where there was supposed to be the end of my day. I was supposed to be able to stop there and that was going to be close to the mission, and it wasn't. And so a nice farm worker, I walked up to him and I said, excuse me, sir, is there any way you could give me a... Sure. And he... Just these people that are people's kindness.
Let's talk about lessons learned that maybe we didn't learn. A lot of Californians in the 4th grade, you have to build a mission out of toothpicks.
That's what I hear.
Like that.
And sugar cubes.
History.
That's what I hear.
So was there something you learned in particular about the missions that maybe we didn't learn in school?
I learned the pride of the missions. Growing up back east, I have to say I was not familiar with the missions. So when I came out, didn't know much about them, and I thought this would really be a nice way to learn about California. The people's pride in the missions, the way that they take care of them, and the funding and everything that goes into keeping these missions, restoring them, and the people really love them.
And if you had to give one piece of advice for someone who wants to do this California mission, what would it be?
Oh my, I would say do it, but do your homework and really know what you're up for. It ended up, it was 796 miles. So you need to really prepare yourself for that.
All right, preparation.
But
Maggie,
do it.
But do it anyway. Maggie Espinoza, thanks so much.
Thanks for having me. I enjoyed it.
I'm Gwen Eiffel on the next News Hour. For Veterans Day, we highlight those men and women who sacrifice all for the love of country. That's Tuesday on the PBS News Hour.
Our weather is going to get a little warmer over the next few days, but more like normal for this time of year. Upper 60s, low 70s along the coast with a mix of clouds. Inland conditions very much the same with a bit of sun peeking through by Friday. A bit brisk in the mountain areas, upper 50s to low 60s. Desert temperatures will be mostly in the low 80s. There's a group of women, veterans in San Diego, who've taken on a new mission decades after their service, bringing comfort to active duty troops on this Veterans Day. KPBS reporter Susan Murphy and video journalist Nick McVicker show us how.
Evelyn Coy remembers it was 72 years ago when she answered the call to serve.
Because I wanted to do for my country, I couldn't believe what was being done to our country.
She enlisted in the Navy in 1942 during World War II.
Raise your right hands and repeat after me. I do solemnly swear.
When I went in the Navy, our uniforms were still on the drawing board.
Coy was in the WAVES division, which stood for Women Accepted for Volunteer Emergency Service.
Are correct.
The WAVES were 21 days old, and I enlisted on my 21st birthday.
The special unit was created as a temporary assignment during World War II. Coy was in the very first WAVES class.
We weren't even allowed overseas in World War II. The Admiral said, no women.
But they were considered an official part of the Navy. They received the same rank and pay as men. Some worked as nurses or office assistants. Others built airplanes.
I was a cryptologist. You were never allowed to tell anybody what you did. My folks never knew what I did.
What she did was work around the clock, breaking enemy code in top secret offices in Washington, D.C.
Imagine I was 21 years old, and I'm sitting in the White House talking to the president's wife.
A law was passed after World War II giving women permanent status in the military. The WAVES unit ended, but the name stuck, and it continues today. So does Coy's desire to serve her country. She and 6 other San Diego WAVES veterans now have a new mission to ease long journeys for active duty troops.
This is a nice fabric. We like patriotic fabric or military themes.
Barbara Ellis is chair of the pillow making project. She joined the Navy in 1954 as a personnel officer during the Korean War. Her military career was cut short after she got married and became pregnant.
And there was no maternity uniform in those days. When you couldn't fit in your uniform, you had to get out.
Ellis says they started the Pillow Project 2 years ago, inspired by their patriotism and desire to support the troops.
Very good.
She holds a pillow making party at her house once a week where they share war stories and practice their military precision, armed with thread, needle, and boxes of stuffing. Ellis says they've made so many pillows they've lost track.
Well over 2,000. I deliver 20 every week.
She delivers them to the USO Neil Ash Airport Center at San Diego's Lindbergh Field. That's where they're given to military members and their families.
When the Waves came to me and said, hey, this is a concept we would like to do, are you on? We took a look at it and said, this is great.
USO Center Director Bobby Woods says 10,000 service members pass through every month. Many are newly graduated Marines fresh out of boot camp from the nearby Marine Corps Recruit Depot. He says the Pillow Project has united young and old generations.
And a lot of these women come from the greatest generation, but they want to continue to serve, and they find ways in which to do it, and I can't think of a better way for them, their particular organization, to serve than what they do now, and they love it.
The women's handmade pillows make a difference for new Marine recruits, such as Curtis DeWolf from Dubuque, Iowa.
You know, them showing their courage and, you know, using their abilities to make pillows to comfort because a 7-month deployment, 8-month deployment, even coming back from recruit training, you just want a chance to relax and not sit on a plane straight up.
David Scribner from Fort Wayne, Indiana, says he feels a debt of gratitude to the Waves women for their military service and their pillows.
When you're shipped out or you're gone for so long, it's nice to know that there's still people serving and trying to help you out while you're trying to help others.
For Evelyn Coy, there's nothing more thrilling than supporting new recruits.
A young Marine comes up to you and says, I want to shake your hand and thank you for the job you did. We are where we are today because of your service.
So the Waves women sew and stuff with hands that served decades ago in war, now crafting comfort for those serving today. Susan Murphy, KPBS News.
You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. We leave you now with a look at a welcome home party tonight at the Miramar Air Station right now, where Marines and sailors are coming home from Afghanistan. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.